What is up, everybody? Turboverse TV here. Today, we're going to talk about the good and bad of Final Fantasy 16 so far. So far, the reviews are spectacular. Like, it's getting 10 out of 10s, 9.5 out of 10s, 8.5 out of 10. So right now, the Metacritic is at 88, and OpenCritic is at 90 right now. So it's doing really well. So this is going to be most likely a must-play game at the moment. But as there is positive, there's also negative that we got to talk about too. Can't just have the only one-sided here. So, Digital Foundry has done the tech review of this game, gave performance testing, and it doesn't seem like it's that much difference between like the post like the patch they did for the game. People they still I think the overall review for Digital Foundry is just to play on fidelity mode. We just play at 4K, 30 frames per second. That's still like the best mode so far. So that is kind of hilarious that people were saying, like, when you play the demo, people were saying that, hey, it's only the demo that has the frame rate issue, but not the final version because it's such an old build. But it's like it still has issues with the performance mode, even with this patch. Like, so I don't know. I'm just gonna play a fidelity mode and just not play it at the performance mode because it's still dropping to like in the 30s. And it's like, might as well just play at the 4K visuals. And people are saying there's still even issues with that. Like, people were saying with 720, it dropped down to 720p at some point. So I was like, wow, that's kind of crazy. 720p in 2023 on a current gen console, the PS5. And this is wild because this was developed only on the PS5. And I think the developer said, hey, it's PS5 only because they can optimize it the best, but that's not true. It's like, if you got all these issues with it, but he was saying the story is pretty good so far, so I don't know. I'm still gonna check it out because when I played the demo, I did like the story and the combat, so I'm gonna play it day one, and it's getting a high review score. So I'm still interested in the game, but this is one negative about the game that you probably won't play it at the performance mode because it still has issues with this game. So, and also this one random thing popped up that apparently the boss fights of Final Fantasy 16 are causing PS5 consoles to overheat. I was like, what? So apparently, this might be a one-off type of situation right here because once again, all these different websites gave this game a high score and nobody reported on that. So I'm assuming this might be a one-off thing right here, where this journalist said, "Hey, his PS5 overheated from playing the boss fights in this game," which is kind of wild. Um, Unless he just has a terrible space for his PS5, I'm not gonna overheat. Like, really. Then again, this might just be a one-off situation. So I don't know if we can take too much credit into this account because I've seen like multiple people saying the PS5 was overheated. Then sure, that might be kind of a concern. But if it's just one person saying it, then it's like it's not that big of an issue. I don't know what people keep saying. Oh yeah, 720p. It pops up. It goes on 720p at some points, which is kind of crazy. So, there's what people have to say about this. Like, um, if this wasn't a PlayStation only Final Fantasy game, the game would be getting blasted for performance issues, but it gets a free pass. I mean, if we do kind of talk, we do have to talk about that because these people blasted Starfield for being only 30 FPS, and Starfield has a lot more going for it than Final Fantasy. Why is this game only 30? Why is this game the best mode for this is 30 frames per second? I don't know. It's like they aren't really receiving that much negativity as games like as other games have received before in the past for being 30 FPS on current gen. So the same engine is definitely not being kept here with this game. Not much left from the PS5 will bring us 4K 60 gaming. Yeah, that's not accurate at this point in time with this, especially with this game. Resolution drops to 720p during fights in performance mode. Huge L. The game was built for PS5. No Series S to blame as bottleneck. Yeah, they definitely got the Series S to blame for this poor performance so far. So, I mean, I think the game's still gonna sell well. The score is pretty high, so I think people are still gonna buy the game at this point. It's just interesting how the same energy is not being kept with this game. There's as much as they scrutinized Starfield for it. The tech review of Final Fantasy 16 is impressive, although the performance mode could have used some improvement. The overall quality and polish of the game deserves all the praise. Well done. Okay. Yeah, performance mode is pretty useless, 720p, and it still drops to. I just realized that they said performance mode is 720p resolution. That is, that is like Xbox 360 PS3 like level visuals right there. That is like, geez. I don't know if I can do 720p. Yeah, I'm just gonna go with fidelity mode. 720p is way too low for a modern game. That's just wild, especially one that's built specifically for the PS5. And it's like you got to go to 720p just to do 60 frames per second. That is just wild right there. So, man, there's no shame in these reviews are overlooking the pure frame rate this game has at times. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why none of these reviewers who gave it 10 out of 10 are talking about that issue. Like, yeah, go to 720p performance mode. That's wild. 720p is artistic choice. Yeah, they gave Starfield so much flack for saying it's artistic choice for Bethesda to do 30 frames, but you know they're not giving the same energy to this Final Fantasy game though. Uh, Well, the company that nitpicks performance in games proceeds to use a word like lavish to describe a game marred by performance issues. The Sony bias is truly something else. Had this been on other platforms, the game would have been blasted. Yeah, this was Xbox exclusive, definitely would have been blasted. Because it's PlayStation, they're handling this with kid gloves at this point. It's kind of sad to see. Uh, well paid. Sorry, I meant to say well said. Play the demo performance mode in low resolutions was on my mind about 0 times. The performance, however, was a bit all over the place, but honestly forgot all about it because the demo was insanely good. I think the only thing that was going to carry this game was the story and just the combat in general because performance mode is not, it's not at the par. Um, Final Fantasy 16 will showcase the power of the PS5, says Yoshi P. Boy, did that age poorly. That aged terribly at this point. Um, Nothing from the performance side deserves any kind of praise. Absolutely nothing. If this was Xbox, this game would be laughed off the internet. At least people would recognize there's a bias here. Looks like there's another game that really benefit from a 40 frames per second slash 120 hertz mode option. Performance around 40 FPS is terrible, especially since PS5 VRR does not work below 48 frames per second. Okay. If this was an Xbox version, forbid the PC port, it would have been torn to shreds. But since it's the PS5 version dropping to F in 720p to maintain 60 FPS, it gets lavish praise. 720p, that is wild right there. Again, what an effing joke Digital Foundry is. Oh man, yeah, this is kind of wild. Like the forgiving nature they're giving Sony right now. Like once again, like other comments have stated, this is Xbox. They won't live this down. They won't live it down at all because it's PlayStation. As a PlayStation exclusive, it's just like we're gonna sugarcoat it. Digital Foundry recommends playing Final Fantasy 16 at 30 FPS quality mode. Again, I don't want to hear anything about Starfield running at 30 FPS. I mean, yeah, that's kind of true. Like, if you're complaining about Starfield being at 30 and you're playing Final Fantasy 16 at 30, then you're a hypocrite. And Final Fantasy 16 is not as ambitious as Starfield. So, definitely a huge hypocrite right there. If you complain about Starfield and don't complain about Final Fantasy. So, um, John Linneman calls Final Fantasy 16 one of the most polished games of this year. That's a joke. And as close to a perfect release as you have seen in a long time. Just a reminder, if it happens on Xbox, it equals bad. Festivals should be fired. Xbox should give up. If it happens on PlayStation, it equals it's okay. Jim Ryan is king. Game is just too large and insert excuses. If it happens on Nintendo Switch, it equals such an awesome gaming experience. Pretty much. Sony and Nintendo, they definitely get some passes in the industry. Uh, this is yet another game where performance mode needs improvement. As long as devs and studios don't prioritize and optimize their games for a good performance mode, it looks like a mid-gen refresh is needed. Yeah. It won't be talking about Final Fantasy by the time Starfield releases, and it will be a commercial flop no matter how many PlayStation fans praise it. I don't think it's gonna be a flop. I think that's kind of going too far with it, but I guess we can't say the Series S is being blamed for this game while it's not performing well. So they can't blame the Series S for this poor performance. But I'm going to conclude it right here. Overall, I think the game is going to be a great game despite the performance issues. People are giving it high scores. It's kind of shocking that they kind of ignore the whole performance issues when they clowned Starfield for it. So I don't know. I'm gonna play the game on Friday, so I'm gonna decide for myself. But definitely want to see your thoughts down below about this. Like I said, there's a lot of good news and bad news about this game, so you can decide for yourself what you're going to do with this one. But definitely cover both the good and bad news with this. But definitely want to see your thoughts down below. If you like this video, as always, thanks for watching, and peace.